Welcome everyone to the Galactic Collaboration Summit. My name is Chris Hoard. I'm a consultant here with Fusion in the UK, and my introductory session today is called The Most Productive Teams Are Empowered. What to expect from this session? We're going to break it down into three parts. The first is going to discuss the value of using the Power Platform and Teams together. The second is going to look at some introductory scenarios to get you started. And the third is to bring together the calls of action so that you can go and get hands-on after the conference. And just to note, this is an introductory session. We're not going to get too far into the weeds, but rather hopefully to give you some ideas just to take away. So to start, we're going to look at this term called empower. Empower is to give somebody the power or authority to do something. For example, we can empower individuals by giving them the ability to make frontline decisions. We can empower businesses. Governments do so through laws and policies. And we can empower teams through tools or through training. Now, empower is a word that Microsoft uses in its mission statement. We might have heard it at a Microsoft conference or on TV, to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. But the mission statement is only the approach to reach its corporate vision. So what Microsoft ultimately want to do is to help people and businesses throughout the world to reach their full potential. So what Microsoft want is to be able to use their apps and their tools to be able to empower everyone to reach their full potential. I like to think of this as a good analogy for the Power Platform and Teams. By using the Power Platform, we can help users of Teams reach their full potential. So Microsoft Teams, I think everyone is quite familiar with this. Microsoft Teams is the hub for teamwork. It brings together chats and files and meetings and calling and apps. And the story of Teams is pretty well known too. So it started off in preview in 2016. It came out of Skype for Business Spaces. And over the next couple of years, won Enterprise Connect twice, and over 500,000 organizations started to use it. Now, last year in July at Microsoft Inspire, we saw this number on the right-hand side. 13+ million daily active users. It has surpassed Slack, which was considered to be its main competitor for the first time. So nearly a year ago, it was already the leader in communication, in collaboration, and teamwork. But the story hasn't stopped there. There has been an explosion in growth over the last year. Microsoft reported 20 million daily active users in November 2019. Then it reported 44 million in March and 75 million in May. Just to take the statistics for one of those workloads, which is meeting and calling, 900 million minutes of meeting and calling per day. That's an astronomical figure. So what's driving that growth? Firstly, it's been all the functionality ads that Microsoft have introduced in the last year. They are giving users what they want. Private channels, which is the first on that list, had over 25,000 users. It was the highest user voice of all time. That has been delivered. A client for Linux, shared system audio, where others, when you play a video, can hear audio in the meeting. Priority notifications, information barriers, which prevent communication between two individuals within the same tenant. I'm not going to drain this slide, but there's been a massive amount of functionality adds the last year as Microsoft has really pushed on with maturing Teams as an application and as a platform. Other factors, as you will see on the left-hand side, Microsoft Teams resonates with organizations. If you go in and have a conversation, it resonates. People like Teams and they're eager to adopt it. It's also at the core of Microsoft's strategy. Microsoft knows that Teams will be successful, and so it's putting its resources and the weight of its development behind it. In addition to having a broad community for Teams, there's over 150,000 users in the Microsoft tech community. I think the biggest factor that's fueling growth is COVID-19. COVID-19 is changing the way that we work, it's changing the way that we live. We're in this new normal, and organizations are seeing the necessity of using Teams. But even given all these factors and given the explosive growth, many organizations are not reaching their potential. Even before COVID, many organizations weren't reaching their potential with Teams. Firstly, this is because they don't use all of the out-of-the-box functionality within Teams. They may just use chat or files, or they may just have gone into audio conferencing. But if you see on this scale here, fewer and fewer in terms of a full mature rollout in Teams. And that's part of our job, is to help them reach their full potential with Teams. So they can go some of the way with all of the out of the box functionality. They can roll out chat and files and meetings and callings. They can start adding some of the 400 apps within Microsoft Teams, and they can use the Microsoft 365 security, all up things like data loss prevention and supervision. But the real insight here, and what organizations are beginning to do, is they're starting to go beyond that out of the box functionality and begin to customize and enhance their teams, partially through SPFX and their own developed applications, but also through the Power Platform. We're going to look at that today. So we have to pivot our thinking a little bit. On the left-hand side, these are the conversations for the last couple of years that I typically had with businesses and Microsoft Teams. I was talking about it in terms of being a hub for teamwork. I was talking about it in terms of bringing together chat and files and meetings and calling so that users could collaborate better. And I was also talking about it, about bringing down the Microsoft 365 security on top of it. But I was never talking about Teams in terms of what it hasn't got or what it can't do, and how the Power Platform can fill in those gaps. So see here with the Power Apps, businesses might have needs which can't be fulfilled by that out-of-the-box functionality. And so that's a perfect Kickstarter for starting to talk about how Power Apps can be built, these low-code, no-code applications, which can fill in those gaps for the teams. In addition, the team may be doing things within Teams that's taken them a long time to do. Teams is a converged application, so we're also working with SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. But are we starting to try and automate our processes and workflows? Things which are taking the time for the team to be able to do, so that we can automate that so that they can focus on more productive and creative work. Thirdly, are they starting to visualize and analyze the data that they're using in Teams? I know so many organizations that have just uploaded their data in Excels to Microsoft Teams, and these are huge Excels, and it's difficult and it takes a long time to get through. Are they visualizing that? Are they making data-driven decisions? And finally, are they using Power Virtual Agents to be able to handle and answer their team's questions by starting to use bots, as opposed to having all of this information not only siloed within their team members, but having to make team members answer the same question over and over again? So I want to show some introductory scenarios about starting to think about what Teams hasn't got and how we can start to fill in their gaps. I'm going to do this in almost like a thought experiment. I have a team here. Adam is saying that Teams doesn't have the ability to let us show more about members of the team. He wants to be able to see all of the users' bios and their current responsibility within Teams. Vescu, on the other hand, is saying to me that it would be amazing if we could add a welcome message when somebody joins. He says that the current experience when a user is added isn't that great. Thirdly, Amanda is saying that the team needs to be kept up to date on the Power Platform, and there are lots of Twitter posts that we're currently missing, and if we don't see these, we may not be leveraging the Power Platform as much as we could do, and she wants to be able to see those in Teams. And Chris, who is managing the Teams migrations for our customers, is saying that they need to be able to easily see where the teams are in terms of adopting their team's workloads. Because at the moment, from an Excel spreadsheet, he can't easily tell and compare. And if he can't easily do that, he can't kind of plan out adoption and change management and what are the next steps? How are we going to develop them even more? So let's start with Adam. We don't have the ability to see more about members of the team. Now, this one is very easily solved with Power Apps by building what's called a Canvas app. And we create and save that Canvas app. We download it to a zip file, we then upload it to Teams, and then we can configure it as a personal app in the left app rail or we can add it as a tab in Teams. Let's go and see this. So just diving into my Teams environment, I'm going to go into my apps channel, and then I'm just going to click on that. You can see that this is my app. Now in Power Apps, this is what the bio app looks like. So I'm just going to go. Here we see what this app is. It is literally, because I've just built it for demo purposes, 3 screens. I've got my home screen where I've got a navigation button to get through to the next screen. On screen 2, I have a gallery. So here's all the members of my team. So when people go through the home screen, they can then click on the user that they want. And then the third screen is the bio screen. Here you can see I've got Adam. I've got a picture of him. I've got the description of his experience. I've then brought in or embedded a stream video so that people can watch the video and see Adam live and see what some of Adam's experiences. And then I've got examples of the customers that he's worked with. I've also got a link out to Twitter. So I created this in about half an hour, 45 minutes. Once I was done, I then saved. So I saved the app. Once it was saved, if I click add to Teams, I can then download the app. So you can see that that's now just thinking about it, and then the zip file is downloaded. I then come back into Teams, into the app catalog, and then I can upload that custom app either for me or my teams or for the whole business if you have the permissions. So I uploaded it for the whole business inside my team. I then added the app to the team. And then once added, if I click the start button to go through, I will then select Adam because I want to know more about Adam. And there we go. So I can play the video. Or I can then click to go out to Twitter if I want to find out a little bit more about Adam. So that's a very, very simple example of an app that we can use to see people's bios and more about members of the team. And it's very effective in terms of team building and orientation. But we can use a Canvas app to build things like in training or instruction manuals or a product portfolio. The possibilities are really endless. In terms of being able to support Power Apps within your team's environment, you need to know about org-wide app settings, app permission policies, and app setup policies. Now, all the information for this is ready to hand on docs.com, but we'll just go in and have a quick look inside the Teams Admin Center. So it's in this section here called Teams Apps. So if I go to the section Manage Apps, and I go to org-wide settings, then the ability to upload zips from Power Apps once we've downloaded the zip from Power Apps is determined by this custom app section here, and we turn on if we don't want to allow, or we turn on to allow and then save. It will also be determined by your app's permission policies. So here is my app permission policies. Allow all apps is currently set, but you can set whether you want to block all custom apps, whether you want to allow some and block others, or whether you want to block specific apps and allow all others. You might only want certain people within inside your organization to be able to use this Power App, and you would use permission policies to do that. You would also use setup policies to if you wanted to add the application to the left-hand rail. So you can see here that I've chosen to put the application in the pinned app. So a few hours after that is applied, the app will come and be shown down the left-hand side, or what we call the app rail. So we can open this app on the left app rail, and we can open it in a team. This is what we call a personal app. What's the actions for Power Apps? This is a very quick look at Power Apps and how we add Power Apps to a team. Leverage the sample apps and the community apps to get started. So there's lots, if you go and have a look at the Power Platform community online, there are lots of apps that people have made, such as QR codes and meeting applications, which you can use in your Microsoft Teams instance today. Also, leverage the sample apps. So if I come back into my team and I click on Teams and I go to Power Apps, so if I do Power Apps here, and I selected Power Apps, and I click on Sample Apps, try them, test them out today. I think there's somewhere over 50 that you can start leveraging straight away. Secondly, identify and foster makers. Get those creative people within inside the organizations and developers to start getting on with low-code, no-code applications. And thirdly, continue learning with MS Learn and Power Platform fundamentals. There is a lot of learning around this subject. MS Learn provides modules to get started right away, and the Power Platform fundamentals is which is also on MS Learn, can get you on your first step of certification. So the second scenario, moving on with Power Apps to Power Automate, is this scenario with Vesku. He said it would be amazing if we could add a welcome message when somebody joins the team, because when a new user joins the team, they simply get added. There's no instructions, so it can be a little bit disorientating. So we did this by adding a flow as a tab in the team. We then built the team based upon Teams triggers, and then we added a user to the team. Let's go and show this in action. So inside my team, I go to the section Flow. I then click on Flow. So I've added the Power Automate as a tab in my actual channel. I then started to create the flow, and I created an automated flow from blank. And this is what it's going to look like. This is what the flow is, and I'm just going to show you. I'm going to dig into that flow. So opening that up, we started with a Teams trigger when a new team member is added. We then get their profile information from Office 365, a get new user profile action, and then we post this message. So this is the message. So hello to the team member. This is what our channels do, and then it asks the team for everyone to give them a welcome. Now the outcome of that, here we go. This is one that I did earlier. Now I didn't write this message. This was just when Yannick was added to the team. So we'll go and add a member, and then we'll go and add Carolina. We've added Carolina. So we've added Carolina. We would then go back to our flow. We would then, I'm going to test run that just so that you can see this would happen after on an automated fashion. So the flow is running. That flow is run. And you can now see that the welcome message has been created. Now you can see that I've saved a lot of time. I mean, if I'm adding members every day, I don't want to have to write out a message, so that sends me a huge amount of time, but it's also saved time with orientation as well. That whole process of having to write, or introduce and orientate to a team can be completely automated by a simple flow. The third scenario with Amanda is that she wanted to be kept up to date on the Power Platform, and she wanted to take Twitter posts and be able to pull them into a team. Now, again, we can do exactly the same as we did before, but what we do is we use the adaptive card designer, and then we build that flow and then await the post to come through. So going back to our team, I go back into the flow channel, I click upon the flow tab. You can see this is the flow that I built, and I'm going to have a look in this one. So I created a Twitter trigger that said, if a tweet comes from MS Power Automate, so that account, and we can do multiple ones if we wanted to add further, we create an adaptive card, and the outcome looks like this here. So you can see, and if I just pull up, you can see that every time that Power Automate has set a tweet out, then we're getting notified about it in Teams. And if we're curious and we want to look at a little bit more, we can go and then view the tweet if I click on the button there, or I can actually view the user should I want to. Now, how did I create that look, that adaptive card? Well, if I go into the flow and I click on adaptive cards, we can go, and I think this site is called adaptivecard.io. You can search for it in a browser, just put in Microsoft Adaptive Card Designer. You can then select the app, so this in case Microsoft Teams in light mode, and then I can start creating what it is that I actually want within that card to see. And then once I've done, it then creates the payload down the bottom, you can see, and then we copy that payload and then we put it back into the flow. So that was what was copy and pasted in the Twitter action within that flow. So just waiting for this to load up. I'm going to go to edit. So, so if I go and then I click inside that action, I've copied the payload and then put in the Twitter that I want to see and then click save. So the benefits of this is that I've saved time checking Twitter. We've all saved time and we're pulling it into a central place. It captures all the posts that we need. And like Power Apps, these two flows can also be added on the left rail as well. So if I just click flow and I'm gonna pin that just there, you can then amend your flows and manage those flows as a personal app, as opposed to having to put this as a tab in the team. So there's loads of other flow examples. There's approvals, there's alerts that you can do it for meeting reminders, for task completions in Planner. But what I would recommend with Flow is to get to know the team's flow templates. There are lots of templates. So if I go to these are templates, get to know them within, because there are dozens of already pre-designed templates that you can use out the box. Get to know teams, triggers and actions that make up a flow. Get to know the applications that you use within Teams, because you can start thinking about the flows between those different applications. Get hands-on with building a flow. There are loads of videos online, particularly on the public video platforms such as YouTube, and get yourself a test environment too. So spin one up either on the CDX platform or purchase a 30-day trial. Get hands-on and start getting into action today. So the calls to actions are to test and build these flows. It takes a little while to develop your first ones, but then after that, it becomes very, very easy. Get that test environment. Secondly, perform a time and motion study within a team. Find out what's taken them a long time to do in Teams, and that might be able to highlight some ways to be able to create some automation flows. And thirdly, same with Power Apps, continue learning with MS Learn and the Power Platform fundamentals. The final scenario we'll look at is creating a very simple Power BI workspace and report. Now, this was from Chris, or as it says, Yannick here. We need to be able to see where our customers are in terms of their team's workloads. So here you can see, if I come into Teams environment and then I go to dashboards, here is an Excel file. This is what Chris has been using so far. So once this loads up, Now that's where they are in their workloads. If I look at that, I can't see clearly where these 20 customers are in terms of their workloads. But we create the Power BI workspace, we then populate the report, and then we add it as a Teams app. So coming in here into Power BI, we go to our workspace and we create a workspace. And once we've created that workspace, what we then do is we link our Excel spreadsheet within our team to this workspace. And then it gives us the ability to be able to create our reports and our dashboard. So if I just click inside this, if I click on reports, just loading up the data. This is what the data looks like in that spreadsheet. So I've created a report. If I click on to edit it there, this is what it looks like. And I can begin, after I've ingested this Excel spreadsheet, to actually create visualizations that make a lot more sense. So I can start making those data-driven decisions. Once I've actually created that report within Teams, I go back and I go to add and I click on Power BI. And I click on, okay, my actual workspace that I created, and I click on the report that I created. I can then bring that into Microsoft Teams. So I can tell where any of the teams are in their migrations. I can tell if that any one of those organizations are using their files or chat. Are they in Teams, or are they still on Skype for Business? Are they using audio conferencing, or are they using Business Voice? And I can slice and dice this information. So if I had a query, for example, on a particular, I can see this is green. So it means is that they are on Teams, they are using chat and files, they're using conferencing, and they're using voice. Whereas this client here, number 16, so they might be the ones that are our focus. And we can start to really define our adoption and change management strategy out of these visualizations. It helps us make better data-driven decisions, and we're actually making the data useful, because this data here in the Excel spreadsheet that it was before, whilst it has data, and whilst, you know, I can, if I really looked at it, I could see the status and work out where that organization is in terms of their team's adoption. I can't really see it very easily. So the speed of the decision and being able to make that data-driven decision and be able to present it in a digestible way is very effective. We can now create a targeted migration strategy, and we can start focusing on metrics and goals rather than trying to make sense of the data. The 3 calls to actions here is to get hands-on and build a report from a simple Excel spreadsheet. Try it. It's very effective and it works out amazingly. Try it in the next business meeting you have. Secondly, push for a culture of data-driven decisions. It's very important not to, you know, use the data effectively, and make sure that the decisions you make are based upon the data, not just on conjecture. And again, continue learning with MS Learn and the Power Platform fundamentals. Now, to finish off, we can bring it all together. I've talked about these things in isolation, but you can build solutions on all of the elements of the Power Platform, such as this one here, which is the Crisis Communication app. This took Power Apps, 3 flows, and a Power BI dashboard, and all the data was housed in SharePoint. Now, that is for crisis communications around the business. It can be to do with COVID, it could be to an earthquake, it could be for a drought, it could be for any kind of crisis. So look for them out there. And when you get really good at starting to build these solutions, you can build more than just with the isolated parts of the Power Platform. And coming back to this insight, I think, you know, just from this short session, we've seen that we can go beyond the out-of-the-box workloads. We can start using the Power Platform to customize and enhance our team. And this is the point. High productivity is acting and making apps based upon business need as opposed to just what's out the box, automating low-level tasks and saving us time, and making data-driven decisions. That's what makes high productive team, in addition to what's already there out of the box with teams. So the calls to action: get hands-on, build a culture, and learn and certify. You've seen the calls to actions throughout today. So I'd like to thank you for this session at the Galactic Collaboration Summit. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again in the future. My Twitter is Microsoft 365 Pro. My blog is microsoft365pro.co.uk. This was an introductory session, an abridged version, but I hope that you took lots of things away from it and are going to get started today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.